So how does the absolute value function work? Well, let's consider the formal parameter x. Now, if the argument passed into this function is greater than or equal to 0, then the function, when called, will return the argument passed into it. However, if the argument passed into the function is strictly less than 0, meaning that it's negative, it's going to take the argument passed in and then negate it. And what this ensures is that when this function is called, it will always return a positive value. Now let's take a look at an example. If we've passed the argument 5 into the absolute value function, it first considers, is 5 greater than or equal to 0? Well, that is true. So then the function is going to return the value of the argument. In this case, it's going to return 5. Now let's consider what would happen if the argument of our function was -5. Once we pass -5 into the function, it's going to check to see if -5 is greater than or equal to 0. And this is false. So then it checks the next condition, is -5 less than 0? This is true. So the function is going to take the argument, which is -5, and then it will negate that value. And of course, when we take -5 and we negate it, the operation of negation is going to change the sign of the operand, giving us a result of +5. All right, let's fire up Google Colab and program this function in Python. We are going to define the function and then we'll try it out with our examples of 5 and -5. So let's first typeset this in LaTeX. I'm going to be placing our function within the align environment here. To get those vertical bars surrounding our formal parameter, I'm going to be using the vert command. And if you want these to scale with the size of your formal parameter, you can use the left and right commands to get that scaling done automatically for you. However, in this case, it's just going to be x, so we don't need them, but we'll include them anyways. So we are going to put our aligned equal sign in, and now we can consider our two cases, which will be placed within the cases environment. Our first case is going to return the argument of our function if the argument passed into the function is greater than or equal to 0. Then the second case is if the argument passed in is strictly less than 0, then it is going to take the argument and then negate it. Now this isn't always so obvious when you see this function for the first time, this piecewise function. So what we're going to do is provide a little bit of additional language here so it's a little bit easier to interpret. So if x is greater than or equal to 0, then we are going to return x. And similarly, if x is less than 0, then we are going to return the argument negated. And I'm using the text command here for the text, followed by a \comma for the spacing. Now we're ready to define our function. To get started, we are going to need the keyword def. I'm going to call this function abs for absolute value. It's not part of the main namespace, so we should be okay. It has the formal parameter x, and let's provide it with some documentation here. We can tell our user that x can be assumed to be an integer, and in addition to that, we should tell them what this function is doing. So it's going to return the value of x if the value of x is greater than or equal to 0, and then it will return x negated if x is strictly less than 0. And let's just check out to see if our function is defined and checking out that docstring. So let's pass our function name abs into the help function, and yeah, there it is. We are good to go. We can start providing the code block for our function. So we have the conditional statement. If x is greater than or equal to 0, the function is just going to return the argument passed in. And if the argument passed in is strictly less than 0, we're going to take that argument and negate it. That's it. All right, let's try it out. So we are going to call the function abs, pass in an argument of 5, and the function returns 5. Let's call the function abs once more, passing in -5 as the argument, and it returns +5. And it did this in the second case by taking the argument -5 and negating it, so our function works. Oh, and one last thing, if you wanted to, you could have defined the function only considering the case where x was strictly less than 0, where the function returns the argument negated, and then for everything else, just return the argument of the function. My name is Mark, and thank you for watching.